Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 245. We have a little bit of a treat for you today. It was a treat for us as well. It turned out that Anissa, Barry, and Mike were all going to be in the office on the same day. So I decided to grab Jeff, and we went down and did an in-person episode. It was nice to be in the same room recording an episode for the first time in a year, I'd say. It was a little weird too. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a webinar coming up Thursday, July 22nd, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be hosting Michael Cullen, and he will be demonstrating his surface decoration that he's famous for on his boxes and his furniture, delicate carvings, and different textural elements that he likes to add to give his pieces a unique pop. So head on over to finewoodworking.com/webinars to sign up for that. We look forward to seeing you there. The webinars have been a lot of fun. It's a great interactive way of picking the brains of Fine Woodworking's contributors. So if you want to be there for that, again, July 22nd, 7 p.m., we'll see you there. All right, on with the show.
This is so exciting.
We're in person.
I know, with 1, 2, 3, 4 people.
I don't think we've done a 4, like outside of Fine Woodworking Live.
Oh, ever?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think this group of 4 has ever.
Mm-hmm. No, never.
No.
And it's thanks to Anissa, because you really, really, really hate remote podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Somebody asked me to Zoom. One of the authors asked me to Zoom last week. I said, no, please, can we just talk on the phone like regular people? I can't. And then this whole setup, like in my house, it's too much for me.
Do you know one of my secrets for remote podcasting, though? I don't create a new set every time we record.
I only do that once.
It's the burn in the right spot, guys.
And I learned, like I even said, I'm never doing this again. Fortunately, because it wasn't. I had
Did
to
you
go
say
pick
that,
up
or did we say you're never doing this again?
Same difference, right? The chair was so cozy. But what gets left out of that is I have to go pick the chair up from Atomic Modern and then keep it safe and then bring it back to Atomic Modern and keep it safe the whole time. Wow. And I have a cat and I have a dog, and it was stressful.
She brings it upon herself.
Yep. I quit.
Can you just wait the podcast out?
What?
Can you wait this episode out before you quit? Okay,
yeah.
Thanks. So I have a frightening proposition that doesn't involve anyone here, but I'm scared to death. Michael Cullen is doing a webinar for us later this month in my shop.
Oh.
Yeah.
Better your shop than my shop.
Is that not the most? Thank
Is
you.
he going to
Barry.
think your shop has a soul, or is it going to be one of the shops without a soul?
Like, what if he just walks in and goes, "Oh, okay,"
Yeah.
and then I'll be like, "Oh no."
I know.
It's
I don't
what am I gonna do?
Sorry.
That's tough. So you're doing the bandsaw box?
It's gonna be surface decoration, so that element of the bandsaw box. So carving, decorating with a carved surface.
So
not the paint.
he's just at a workbench, or something. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like workbench, and I assume he's. Oh, please God, let him bring his own gouges.
He will.
Oh, he will.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to email him and tell him not to.
I'm going to email him and tell him, bring them, but pretend that you didn't.
Oh God, but I am so nervous about the prospect of him just because it's somebody else in your shop is different, but I equated it to, it's almost like, a guitar player who you've listened to play records and you really respect, picking up your guitar and saying oh, okay, here, or I don't know. I'm really scared about it. Would you be nervous, Mike?
Oh, that's a thing. Yeah. Yeah, there are so many levels of stress and expectation of like, yeah, what's he going to think? What is Michael Cullen going to think of my shop in terms of the vibe? Is he going to be disappointed? That's the worst.
Michael Cullen's not that way.
He won't tell me.
No,
Right.
see, that's the thing. He'll never say it. Yeah. I think Michael's very adaptable.
Yeah.
I think he'll have a great time. And you get to say Michael Cullen was in your shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I'm gonna
That's
sit
worth
outside your shop. I have to say, I'm really enjoying looking back and forth at everybody.
It's very disconcerting. I need to like it at all.
Right?
This is too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I've got. This is nice.
So for those who aren't watching, we are in, what is this area called? The lounge, or I don't know. We're in like this weird recessed section. Like the floor is recessed into the floor. And it's filled with Stickley furniture.
Yeah.
And we're here because the podcast studio is kind of torn apart. But we thought, like, okay, there's like a lot of circulation, or actually, no, the air conditioning's not on right now, so it's fairly uncomfortable. But there's a lot of volume, and we felt safe and comfortable here with all of us. And yeah. And Anissa doesn't have to deal with Zoom.
Nope.
So.
And I'm not just looking at different parts of a screen when somebody's talking. I'm doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeff is here. It's pretty cool. It's been a long time.
It's probably been a year since we did a in person on the patio. But
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did do
yeah.
that.
Well, okay, so let's answer some questions. Unless somebody else has something to bring.
Well, at lunch,
knew it.
we just went to lunch.
Okay.
And
Which we missed. Jeff and I missed.
you were supposed to tell them.
I invited them.
Whatever.
There was talk of a mutiny.
A pod mutiny?
A pod mutiny.
All
Yeah.
right.
No, there was not talk. There was the proposition of a mutiny.
It was one person.
Right,
It
yeah.
was a single
It's not
person.
talk.
I'm okay with that. Come on, bring it up.
Well,
You just have to mix it too.
oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Well, the mutiny part of it was to just like not go with the questions that you had. Just make up our own at lunch.
All right.
And spring them on you.
What do you got? Bring it on.
Nothing. The food came and
Michael Collins come into your shop. What
Oh
do you
yeah,
do?
Okay.
that's it.
So there's no questions that were
nothing
made
came
up?
of it,
Nope.
no.
All right. So let's go with the listener questions.
The mutiny happened over there apparently.
then. You left the
Mutiny has been
at-
overstated.
The mutiny was left at the Indian buffet.
Yep.
All right. First question's from Adam. And I like this question. That's why it's first. How do you plan and approach a project? And in what order? I often find myself stumbling through something later on in a project because I've jumped the gun earlier and just had to cut that joinery too soon or pre-finish. So you don't answer first.
Did I mention I'm writing a book?
No. So we're going to answer, and then Mike's going to tell us the real answer.
I like that.
I don't know if I
This
like
is why
that.
there was no mutiny.
Yeah. So, Barry, what's your process like? Like, do you just jump into a project or what?
Typically, no. And anymore, I've been getting more anal where like I like shop drawings. So if I do like a SketchUp for something just to feel it out, I'll take the time to make scenes with dimensions. Otherwise, I keep running back to my computer and going, well, what was this length or what was that width? So overkill.
Do you make your own little Fine Woodworking magazine article and like your own little cover and like open it up and
So,
like fake Tetro drawings and
not fake. Excuse me, sir. But full disclosure, I am subverting this magazine with my own output.
Okay.
So this is that. Yeah. And so doing that, like building in SketchUp and the shop drawings, it helps me plan ahead. I'm like, oh, this piece needs to fit into that piece. So I should make this piece first because this joinery needs to match over there and not vice versa. And so that typically saves me from those type of process issues. But I still hit hiccups where like, oh, I thought my mortiser could cut deeper than this. So I still run into problems, but the process starts with the drawing and then dimensions and then just kind of what needs to fit into what kind of thing and trickles down from there. Anissa, what's your wrong answer according to Mike?
Maybe mine is going to be the right answer, and he's not going to have anything to say.
I doubt it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I should take that. I don't jump right in, and I work extraordinarily slowly. But I'm kind of working it out in my head for a long time before I go in the shop, or probably obsessively.
Are you don't sketch up? Are you?
No. No. And then I'll do a very quick drawing.
Okay.
Just like a little sketch, and I'll get the outer dimensions.
Probably on a napkin too, Krenov.
Or something similar to a napkin. I will do just like a bullet list of order of operations.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
You actually write out an order of operations.
yeah, I'm a list person.
Okay.
I have so many lists going in my head on paper all the time. So I'll have that little sketch and I'll look at it and I'll think, I need to do this first, this first, this first, and I just bullet them, the order of operations. If I have to pre-finish somewhere in there, I'll just do a little mark or something, like notate that on there. And then as I'm building, I'm measuring and cutting as I go.
Yeah.
Like I'll mill everything that I need to mill to certain thicknesses at the same time. And I keep everything over width, over length until I absolutely have to cut it down to the, did I mention the slow part? Yeah. And then I go from that.
Your list, do they end up on offcuts?
I actually start that list on paper in my house before I go out to the shop.
Uh-huh.
But do I write on anything and everything that I can possibly write on in the shop? Yeah.
That's often like tomorrow, grab an offcut. Like tomorrow's to do. Like,
no,
right
there have been on offcuts. Yeah.
I think I've gotten better about order of operations, but I should be writing it down the way that you do. Like, I used to just build from the outside in and just screw myself over nonstop. Like there was a side table I made with 3 drawers, and like I built the whole carcass without trying to figure out how I was going to mount the drawers. And it was all glued together, and then I was like, oh no, how do I get in there and do this?
That's a little different than building from the outside in.
But like, yeah, like I really, really struggled with working myself into a corner, and then I just could not.
Yeah.
But honestly, some of my best work was probably from figuring out how to get myself out of that corner. Mm-hmm. But now, like I'm designing a project right now, and I'm trying to take what I've been learning and in SketchUp, I'm sizing everything to the same measurements that it possibly can, and then write those down at a list. So like what pieces are all the same length that should be cut from the same stop block setting.
Right.
And not necessarily a given length, but the same stop block setting is most important. What joinery can I do? If I change this joinery, can I use the same dado blade setup over here? If I do, so I'm trying to get a lot better about figuring everything out in advance. I'm finding it means I'm spending 10 times longer in SketchUp than I ever was. Like I think now it's like, toolbox 0.5 as opposed to toolbox and then go, yeah, try and get as many parts the same length as possible. But I need to start writing down an order of operations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all really important stuff. Anissa, you mentioned planing all the stock at the same time. So if you have a lot of parts coming down to 3/4, they probably really need to be 3/4.
Yeah.
So run them all at once. I've even gotten to the point where if I do that, mill up a bunch of stuff, and then I have, oh, shoot, there's one more part I need, I'll actually bring that down and then bring everything down to the new dimension. It's
Just
super
skim it,
important. Yeah. And Ben, you mentioned the same thing with parts that need to be the same length, cut them at the same time using the same stop block. And both of those situations fall under the concept of equal, not exact. And that equal is far more important than exact, meaning if the plan says 24 inches, it could be a 16th either way. And if they're case sides, as long as they're both consistently one way or the other, that's the key thing. And you said, building from the outside in got you in trouble. I think what got you in trouble is building without a clear idea of But that's the other notion is, so on one case, it's really important to do a lot of parts at exactly the same time. And then it's super important to not do certain things like, if you have something with a door and a drawer in it, you don't cut the door and drawer parts to length until the piece is made, and then you just fit the opening. So there's a lot of strategies. And so this was like a really loaded question because it's like, oh, okay, that's like 90% of woodworking is involved in how do I go about doing this in what order?
How do I woodwork is the question.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying, Ben, also was that the more you work, the better you're getting at it. So like the easier it's getting because you have a better understanding of where you're going and what you should be doing. And I think that's the thing is that woodworking gets easier as you're more experienced, not just because your skill level gets better, but because you have a better sort of top of the trees picture of the whole process before you even start. So I would say in terms of advice, if you are a subscriber or member to Unlimited and you can access fine woodworking articles, look at the project articles, not even like the details, but just sort of skim over and see how different makers approach building different types of projects and the order in which they're doing it, because that's like a huge part of the information in those articles is really how they go about doing it. And you can use that information and put that to use in everything you make.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are your favorites?
Projects to look at?
Yeah, like construction processes.
Bexford. I like Bexford's carcasses. Like all of his chimney cupboard and
and even his bigger projects, like an armoire style with doors and drawers, because they get to the parts, they get to things like Ben is talking about is the internals, which because you don't see it from the outside, you may not think about it, but like the internals of the case with dividers, that's probably the most important part of that. Mm-hmm. I remember we were doing an article on a bow front table with drawers, with curved drawer fronts. And, as the art director looking for the hook of the article in the beginning while we were concepting this, I thought, oh, cool. How does he do the bow front and how does he do the curved drawers to match that? And the editor went back to the author and the author said, yeah, I don't know yet. But obviously he knew what he was doing and he knew enough to know that he needed to figure that part out. So...
What Barry, you lit up.
Forget if this is a project, if this was something in a project or if this was just a technique thing. But Steve Latta's cutting. So if they need to share a shoulder to shoulder,
there's
cutting
a video.
them to the same length.
Issue 148. Yeah. Build a small table.
Yeah. So it is the federal table.
It's a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a video series on it too. I don't know if I've read the article, but it's the same. And it's just.
So it's even if things have the same shoulder to shoulder, but end up in the final piece at different lengths, cut them at the same length in the beginning. That way you can cut all the shoulders at the same time. And then the shorter pieces you just cut down later on, which is astoundingly smart because something you're doing at the beginning affects at the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is beautiful. And it's something that I think helps open up process period, like not just shoulder to shoulder, but just how do I look at this project like Steve Latta would, because that's my goal.
Well, and I think I've said it on the podcast before that you've gone on and on to me about the importance of a shoulder-to-shoulder measurement, and I was always like, yeah, okay, and then I would walk away and go, but how do I cut shoulder to shoulder? How do I what's the stop block set up to get shoulder to shoulder? And until I really understood that Steve Latta video and article or whatever, it was like, oh, cut shoulder to shoulder and then trim off the rest later. It doesn't matter.
Amazing.
Oh, okay. That's simple. Yeah.
But sidebar, I love the idea of Mike getting very serious about a shoulder to shoulder. And so, those old PSAs, like, do you know where your kids are? Can we get Mike, do you know your shoulder to shoulder?
I think that Tom McLaughlin's
Yes.
shaker cup or shaker chest
Yeah.
that's just in the last issue, his process and the whole thing is just so smart. And that is truly, my brother, he was going over the issue and he was just like, look at how beautiful this is. I would love to be able to make one of those things one day. And I was like, you totally could using these methods. It's going to take you a long time, a lot longer. Tom McLaughlin built 3 in a few weeks while we were there, but you could totally do this, just step by step, follow that order of operations and you got it. I think that methodology was brilliant. Should we go to question number 2?
That is covered in my book, by the way.
When's your book coming out?
October 26th.
Ooh,
It's available for pre-sale on Amazon right now.
really?
Yeah.
Is it like not the
Did you
secret
write it
pre-sale,
yet?
right?
I pretty much know what I want to say. It's done. It's just wrapping it up, putting it to bed, going through final edits right now.
Wow.
That's
So-
cool.
Equal parts elation and burnout. Just, yeah. So
Is there a celebration after the fact or is there just another book?
it's just keep on going.
God, that's a metaphor for life, right? Just keep on going.
Wow, it's getting dark.
I know, right?
There's thunder rolling in.
Right?
All right, question number 2 from Andrew. I made a toy box lid and my glue up was 4 boards wide. I did the breadboard ends to stabilize the panel and account for wood movement. But my question is about the pins. If I had an odd number of boards on my glue up, I would leave the center pin fixed and make the outer pinholes oblong on the tenon. But with 4 boards, I didn't want the pin through the glue joint at the center. So I picked 1 board off center and held that fixed and then made the other 3 oblong on the tenon. Was that the right way to do that? What would you have done on an even number panel glue up for breadboard end pins? How did he possibly glue up boards and have the joint in the
Dead
middle?
center. That'd be so hard.
Couldn't do it if you tried.
Well, now I'm recalling lunch more accurately. This is how the mutiny got stopped. We started talking about this question. I can see the eyes rolling over there.
Mutiny never started.
The mutiny started, and then Mike answered this question.
Well, first off, I answered a Mike. So the mutiny thing is very, very odd.
Well, you do, but you're king of the podcast.
Okay.
I mean, you would be the person we were overthrowing.
Well, I can just edit it to make it say whatever I want.
So, Mike, what did you
Whatever,
have to say
Ben.
about the breadboard ends?
I understand about not necessarily wanting to drill right through a glue joint. On one hand, it's not going to be a big deal. On the other hand, I get it. I would just do a pair of pins on either side of the glue joint, maybe 2 inches apart at the center. I like that look. It's a really cool look. It looks really intentional, and then just spread out your other pins from there. So you are still centered. You're just on either side of your glue joint, and you're really just locking it down in the center. And then you elongate the holes on the outside. And those two in the center, you don't need to elongate those two holes in the center, especially if they're only a couple inches apart. In fact, I would probably glue the center 8 to 10 inches of the breadboard in place.
So this got me wondering though.
Yeah, 6. PVA glue is gonna that's gonna give enough. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wouldn't the center be the best place for the pin, even with the glue joint, because you are gluing where the pin is. So you are, in fact, making that glue up even stronger by gluing the breadboard in the center.
Well, you do want to glue it in the center. I don't think you just want to pin it at the joint.
Yeah, so I'm saying for Andrew, if he did in fact do the pin right in the center on that center glue joint,
Yeah.
he's only strengthening it because then he's going to be gluing across the joint as well.
I think when you're drilling, especially at a glue joint, let's say the glue joint fails, you end up with short grain, on the outside of that pin, on the tenon, on either side of it. And I think that's where, and that could put pressure on the glue joint to actually split it at that point. You are gluing it. So cool. I think to your point, this would be a really good solution. If you wanted it a single pin dead center, put the breadboard on, glue it and clamp it, do your elongated pinholes on the outside, and then just drill and pin
The center
once it's done. Because to your point, it's all glued up and you're not going to hurt anything. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yet the thunder rolls.
I don't like the thunder.
I just smelled fire. It's the fireplace right behind me, I hope. Okay. All right. So anybody have anything more to add on the breadboard?
No, but I also really like the 2-pin thing. It's calling it intentional. That's perfect. It doesn't look like, just 2 pins are there. It's definitely a considered.
Yeah. What was this on a chest?
A toy box lid.
Toy box lid. The other thing about breadboards is it's a cross grain joint. So if you're trying to flush that thing up, it's such a pain because no matter which direction you sand, you're going to get cross grain scratches. And if you try to stop right at the line, you can never stop right at the line. And if that center board is not going to stay flat. So even if you do get it flat, it's going to kind of bow up or down, and it's going to be a little high or low at the edges anyway. So if you wanted it flat, that's really going to make you mad. And then also, that center board is going to expand and contract across the width where the breadboard is not expanding across the length. So if you flush it up, then that top is going to be inset half the year and outset the other half. So to handle all of those problems, and I think this is perfectly appropriate here, is I make the breadboard slightly thicker than the tabletop and slightly longer than the width of the tabletop, so that even if it does flex up and down, there's enough offset to where it's not an issue. And if it's not like perfectly parallel, it's okay. And if it starts out long and the top expands and contracts, as long as the breadboard stays longer, you've sort of accommodate all of that without changing the look of it. So
Bare minimum, maybe put a little chamfer on each edge, on the inside edges, so you don't have that perfect.
You can do that.
Yeah. No.
Flush surface with a little V groove.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can do that. Okay. I don't think it's going to be quite as successful as hiding any misalignment over time.
Yeah. All right. It's ready for segments.
Ooh, can I go first?
Yeah, of course.
What?
Nothing.
It's not. It's actually. So, I'm going to do smooth move. But
I let Barry work in my shop.
That's exactly what it's going to be. That's exactly what it's going to be.
Barry did spend the day yesterday working in my shop. And if he doesn't use the smooth move today, I will use it at some other point.
Are you outing a Barry smooth move?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I was going to out the Barry smooth move, but then something else happened yesterday. It's not 100%. It's not at all woodworking related, but I feel as though I need to tell people about this smooth move. If you haven't
So, I was on the gram.
Can I, Ben, please?
This was one of those, I don't even know the backstory, but I was like, this is Anissa's life.
So yeah, that's a yes, right? That's a so
I can't stop
yesterday
you.
was a day like most others, but a little bit worse than most others. And it started, I ended up having to take one of my kids to the dock unexpectedly, and I got an appointment right as Barry was arriving to come and work in my shop to mill some lumber for a project that he's working on. And I think we left even before Barry got there. So it was just this quick phone call on the way to the dock. And I'm farming one kid out to my mom so that I could take the other kid to the dock. And I came back, and then I had to go pick up prescriptions. Then I had a dentist appointment later in the day that they canceled on me because I didn't respond to that text message that said, confirm your appointment. Nobody ever doesn't give you the appointment if you don't respond, right? Like who 100% replies, yes, I'm coming to my appointment. They canceled my dentist appointment. Then, on my way to the dentist appointment, I got a phone call from Barry who said,
everything's going great. You've never had a smoother time in the shop. Thank you for your assistance.
Enjoy your time at the dentist. Or no, that was on my way to the pharmacy or something. And when I came back from the pharmacy, Barry was still working on the thing that he asked me about, which
Things
I'm
are
not
going
going to
that
mention.
smoothly that I was able to just like coast, cruise control.
And I walked in and I said, wait, you're still changing that? And he said, yeah. And so I'm going to just leave the rest of that part out because I might use it some other day if you're not going to use it today, Barry. Then I went to the dentist and that happened. Then from the dentist, I went to my kids. They're in this soccer basketball league that is really cool because there's a Harlem Globetrotter, an ex-Harlem Globetrotter that runs this basketball league. Anyway, I'm on the way there. I get on the phone. I'm almost
Globetrotter was too much.
Wait, Dave Fisher, he's amazing. Like the work that he does with these kids. Anyway, I'm on the way there. I get on this phone call. It was a mean phone call. I get off the phone call, the really mean phone call, and it wasn't with Barry. And I'm walking over to my kids' basketball thing, and there are these porta potties there. I had to pee because I've been rushing around all over all day. I go in the porta potty. I have my glasses, my phone, and my car key in my hand. And I wasn't even standing over the porta potty, but somehow my key flew out of my hand right down into the porta potty. And that's really gross. That is like the worst, dumbest thing I've ever done, ever. And so there was a food truck outside the porta potty, and I asked the two older gentlemen who were sitting there if they had anything that I could use to like a hanger or something I could use to, because I could see it was my spare single key with the round thing on it. And they had an awning on the food truck, and so they gave me that stick that you see everybody
like the
turning.
crank?
Yeah. And it had a hook on the end of it, and I said, "Really, you're going to let me use that to fish out the key from the porta potty?" And they said, "Yes." So I went and I got that. And I said, "Thank you so much." I went in the porta potty. 10 minutes I was in there trying to fish with my phone in the one hand, trying to fish out the thing on the hook. And so there are these men's softball games going on at the same time. I walked out of the porta potty and I said, "Hey, I need some help in here." And this one guy came over and said, "What do you need?" And I said, "Well, I dropped my key in there and I'm trying to fish it out with this thing." He went in there in like 2 seconds. He had it. And that's my smooth move. I dropped the key in the porta potty.
I'm looking for, I was looking at,
songs to play in the background of that, right?
I was looking at reviews today, and there was one that was like, "I really like it when Anissa's on, and it just goes totally off the rails."
It's a smooth move. There's no,
And it's like, You got it, man.
It's like
This
a
one
double
literally went down the toilet.
Oh, shoot. That was terrible.
Okay.
At least it wasn't my phone or my glasses. Oh, my gosh. And I got a whole bunch of people on Instagram that said I would just buy a new car.
Oh,
That's it.
Barry, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I'm not going to do my original segment.
Because you
Thanks
thought
to
I
your-
was going to do it.
No, you threw me under the bus. You're like, I'm going to save this for later if you don't do it now. What is this? So, Puppet Master, I was at Anissa's shop yesterday, and I don't like not looking at Mike when I tell a story. I need to like,
Yeah.
but so I was at Anissa's shop, milling, so very dust intensive. I had the, almost said dust machine, dust collector going the whole time as a responsible visitor to Anissa's shop. I'm done at the planer. I'm about to go back to the joiner. So it's one machine, one hose. You just move it machine to machine. Sorry, one dust collector, one hose. So I was pulling the hose off of the planer, and I noticed chip buildup in the port. And I look in the hose, and there's kind of some dust laying in the hose. I'm like, oh, crap. I turn on the machine, and there's almost no suction. I go over and look, and that canister is full, like past that red line.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to change the bag. Pull it out, take the bag, dump it, bring it back.
Make a phone call in the middle of that somewhere. Because you called me and said, do you have another bag?
Yeah.
Or you texted me or something.
So this is when your day was still going well.
Right.
And
before I woke up.
and so empty the bag, turn the machine back on, no suction. I was like, oh no, did I not install the canister well? Unhook it, take it out, put it back in, and it like auto locates, so it should seal perfectly. Well, that's not it. I'm looking at the machine, and it has this HEPA filter in back, like that particulate.
Yeah, it's two separate. There's the big canister, and then there's that, which never ever, you don't get the big chips in there. You just get the little dust.
Well, that was full of
dust.
chips. And so it was
That
full
the
to the.
floor, everywhere around
I take
the
that
dust
bag
collector.
off, and just a whole bunch of chips go. It was like an animation of Santa going down a chimney, and you just see like that. That's what it was. I was like, oh, so I dump that bag, bring it back, put it back on, no suction. It's like, oh no. Take that bag off, jam my hand up into the filter, do this, and just more sawdust is coming out. I noticed it had a little, I don't know the name, but like a flappy thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm cleaning off the filter that way. No suction. Like, well, this is very alarming. This is when you come back and are like, you're still working on this thing?
Barry's crouched on the ground by the canister. He looked up at me. He looked like Gollum.
Yeah. And just covered in sawdust. It must have been a very weird scene.
And it was so hot yesterday.
So we take the lid off, or the top that you can see into the filter. There's more sawdust up in there. So Anissa sticks her hand in, swooping a little. None of this worked. She has to go. It's like, just call Grizzly. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm going to have to order you a new dust collector.
Oh my God, Barry, I only have an hour left. Just call Grizzly. I don't care what you do.
I'm on hold with Grizzly. They get to me. And the guy said, have you checked the hose? Like, what do you mean? There's no suction. He goes, the hose, yeah, the stuff may be packed up in there. So I take the hose off of the machine and like do the thing where you can let it like pull up the middle so it comes out at end. Like a grocery bag full of dust went out and that was it. That was the problem. Everything got jammed in that was one of the problems. Everything got jammed in the hose. But I was looking at like, oh, I need to spend $1,000 to buy Anissa a new dust collector because whatever I did to jam this thing all the way up really screwed it up.
I knew that you were milling. I should have emptied that bag before you got there.
Yeah, I feel like that because as I emptied that, a lot of the chips were mahogany, which I had nothing to do with. I felt bad looking like, oh, it's all pine. Nope, that's chocolate brown. So
yeah, no, I didn't think of doing that. I was busy dismantling chicken pens and cleaning off my bench and cleaning up the shop.
So my smooth move was getting involved with Anissa yesterday. Any other day, probably been okay. Yesterday had some bad energy.
Yesterday was bad juju.
This is reminding me of an email. Jim replied after your last smooth move about not having the hose hooked up.
Oh, yeah.
Jim replied that he had done something similar, only he accidentally hooked up his DeWalt 735, which has the chip blower.
Yeah.
The hose, he hooked the hose directly from the DeWalt into his jointer. And filled the joiner.
Cross contamination.
I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he filled the joiner with chips. And he said he had to take, because when a joiner gets backed up, it starts coming out
That's
under the beds and everything. It was under there. And, I
That's
love
funny.
that one.
That's great.
That
I like that guy.
Yeah. Jim's right on, apparently. So I don't even want to go.
Go ahead, Ben. I'm not going to follow that.
Mine's just so tiny and stupid, but whenever I have to do a panel glue up of thin boards, I always just put them together, book match them, and try and hand plane them. And it's always just, I get nowhere. And a lot of times I'm doing very, very thin boards for instrument tops or whatever, and just not working. Then I take it to the joiner and then do one pass, clean it up, and it's fine. My joiner's set up in a way now where I only get to it if I have to. So I finally did the stupid thing where I just took a piece of plywood and put a lip on it and made a long shooting board and just shot it on this piece of plywood on my workbench top. And immediately, first try goes together, no problem. And it was one of those why would you not have done this years ago?
That's with a hand plane on its side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hand plane on its side, long grain shooting board or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just worked. It's one piece of plywood with a hook on it.
Yeah.
Why would I not have done that years ago? Worked perfectly.
Did you mark your X and O so you one board is face up, the other's face down?
Yeah. I buy them book match, so they're already marked.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a great trick. I learned that. I think it was it Tim Coleman who did the plane stop, or was it Tim Rousseau? Tim Rousseau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, and it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
It's like your workbench top is flat enough.
Oh, sure.
And mine's, a workbench I stole from the old shop. It's just a junky workbench, but it was flat enough to pull this off and perfect joint glue up.
Cool.
No visible light when you hold it up, when you hold the pieces together. So, yeah, simple solution to, that I just never went and did it. I feel stupid. You got anything, Mike?
I'm going to pass.
All right. I would have passed too if I knew that was an option. All right, let's take a quick break. This episode is sponsored by Maverick Abrasives. Maverick is a family-run company that's been making sanding belts and discs for woodworkers in the USA for 30 years. With Maverick, you're buying factory direct, so you're likely to save a lot of money. I just looked around my shop at the various abrasives that I use, and I did the math. If I bought everything directly from Maverick, I would save around 40% on my sanding discs and belts. Maverick has all of the popular size belts and discs in stock on their website, but they can also make any custom sizes that you might need. Check out their website at maverickabrasives.com or give one of their owners, Garrett, a call at 714-646-3299 and use the code FINEWOODWORKING. That's one word, FINEWOODWORKING, for 10% off your order. Again, that's maverickabrasives.com and the code is FINEWOODWORKING. Question number 3. My Shapton Glass 16,000 is nearing the end of its life after 2.5 years. I've been very pleased with it, but I'm considering switching to an Arkansas stone for final polishing. Nothing against Shapton or other whetstones. I just don't enjoy pausing to flatten them, especially if I'm sharpening a bunch of tools all at once. It appears that there is a black Arkansas stone that is classified as even finer as the translucent stones. Others mark it as their highest grit. It's only slightly more expensive than a replacement Shapton, but I would value the time gained back from not flattening a stone after every tool, and it would last forever, theoretically. So, to my question, has anyone at Fine Woodworking used black Arkansas stones, and are they able to provide feedback on it? How high of a polish or keen of an edge can it produce in comparison to something like a 16,000 grit? That's so.
I know.
Shapton. Will it ever really need to be flattened? So,
Yes. It won't stay flat forever. I think just about every woodworker I know who's been working for a while sharpened with oil stones. And every single of those woodworkers that I know use water stones now. So, except for, I know woodworkers who sharpen carving tools on oil stones because they're harder. So I think that might be an exception. Okay, so switching, number one, the grit comparisons are super tough because everything is rated differently. The Shaptons are the closest because they give you the micron equivalent, which I think that's like an absolute standard. Grit standards are all over the place, like a 4,000 grit Japanese water stone, like a king stone, is super, super fine. But like probably equivalent to a 8,000 Norton or a 10,000 Shapton. So that's all over. I think the biggest problem with oil stones is that you're lubricating with oil instead of water. And what the oil and the water does is it just removes the metal shavings, the swarf from the surface to keep the stone from getting clogged up. And the problem with using an oil is that it's slippery. And it does its job too well, and it makes sharpening a lot slower because it's like making it less prone to do what a sharpening stone needs to do, which is abrade that steel. So I don't think you're saving a lot of time. The whole thing about water stones is that you get just as sharp, but a lot faster, because the water doesn't offer that lubricating action. And then also as a water stone breaks down, that's actually a good thing because you're exposing fresh grit. So you always are, in essence, every time you flatten a water stone, you have a brand new stone. Where at least my oil stones, and I'm not a good example because I don't take great care of them, but they're all fairly glazed over by now. I think that's a big reason. And if you're using a Shapton 16,000 and you liked it, I don't know if a hard Arkansas stone is going to be your first option. Maybe you try a different brand of Japanese stone, or maybe you do diamond paste on like a hard piece of maple or MDF or something. I think there's different ways to go. I don't know. I would never go backwards. And then also, if the rest are water stones and now you're introducing an oil stone, now you're mixing oil and water stuff, and that's an issue.
I'm wondering what his preceding grits are.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that it would be as fine as a 16,000 grit Shapton. But I mean, you go up to 12,000, right?
Now, I have a set of Nortons, which is a standard 1,000, 4,000, 8,000. And then I got 148 Shaptons. But the 8,000 Shapton is coarser than 8,000 grit Norton. So I went with a 16,000 grit Shapton just to get to the same level of polish that I was getting with the 8,000 Norton. And by consequence, I guess I'm slightly higher, but I don't think that really matters unless the steel of the tool is of such a quality where the grain is small and close enough to benefit from, a finer stone. Mm-hmm. So I definitely use it on my Japanese tools because I do think that quality of steel warrants and benefits from that higher grit. But all my plane irons, for the most part, I take them to Norton 8,000.
Now, you used to use oil stones.
Yeah, and I still do for carving tools.
Okay.
When I bought water stones, the first time I sharpened, I could not believe how fast it was. So, I get hating flattening. It is not fun. I have you in my head whenever I flatten. I'm just rubbing away money I spent. But you're right. It is a new stone.
It doesn't sound like me.
That is exactly your voice. And so the speed of water stones, I appreciate every time I remember my oil stones. And a big thing for me, and I'm glad you said it too, because I thought I was just being paranoid, but mixing oil and water, like that's a metaphor. You know, like that's how powerful that is because it's a metaphor. And
That's what I was thinking when you said it.
like, yeah, you can clean off your tools between, but why, at the price of those stones, why risk cross-contamination? Like, yeah, I think you can clean them. Like, I've heard of people putting stones in dishwashers, but like, why? I'm not sure if there are benefits, and if there are, I'm not sure they outweigh the drawbacks and risks. So if someone said, I don't like my 16,000 Shapton, I don't like flattening it, are Shaptons the slowest wearing? I know it's a ceramic stone.
Yeah, this is a great place to break. Yeah.
I mean, some people don't even call a Shapton a water stone because it's non-porous, and you wet it. So I consider water stone because you are using water as a lubricant, but they are non-porous. You don't need to soak them. You just spritz them, and they are super, super hard. Like if you buy a Shapton glass stone, the actual stone itself is only like 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's backed by glass just because, well, here's a backing. And
you think that's how the salesperson pitched it? Well, here's a backing.
Yes.
We have this lying around.
But, that said, so my routine in flattening is anytime I'm doing plane irons, absolutely I start by flattening everything. Even if I do 2 or 3 plane irons, I'm pretty good. And then from there, I switch over to chisels because they're narrower. I know things are still fairly flat enough to get a chisel. And also the chisels, especially as they get narrower, you're just really putting a lot of wear and tear on your stone. So I tend to go plane irons, maybe block plane, maybe wider chisels, down to narrow chisels, and just expect the thing to be so beat that I'm going to flatten everything. So I do flatten almost every session, but not necessarily multiple times. The only time you need to flatten over and over and over is if you are polishing the back of a plane iron or a chisel, because you only want to go over any section of a waterstone surface once. So you kind of work your way up one side, flip it, work your way up the other, flatten the stone, do it again. Flatten the stone, do it again. Because the problem with the waterstones breaking down as you use them is that you just create a hollow. And if you are sharpening the back of a chisel or plane iron on a hollow, you're creating a convex surface, and you're never going to be able to get the polish up to the corners because if you've just taken that thing out of flat. So that is one where you can go with sandpaper on glass, which is not great. You can maybe go to diamond plates, but that has their own issues and typically don't get very fine. So that's a tough question. But basically, flattening the back of any tool is the one where you need to flatten your stone after every single pass. And so you may end up flattening your stone 5 or 6 or 7 times in flattening or polishing the back of a tool.
Yeah, I think I am with Anthony where I absolutely despised flattening stones. I probably said that. What was it?
I gotta flatten my stones again, like that. I think you're getting more smokery. Like now you're an 80-year smoker.
But I would flatten them every single time I sharpened anything.
How'd you flatten?
I bought the high dollar Diaflat.
Yeah.
The flattening stone was $180. I think.
Yeah. It's like 2 seconds to flatten a stone, though.
Yeah,
Did you use water?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
His tears.
Just the process bothered me.
Okay.
And then when I was moving my stuff into my shop, my home shop, that I don't have heat, or I didn't have heat out there at the time, and I was worried about things freezing, didn't want to bring them in and out, and that was my call. No, I'm done.
Yep.
But I probably over flattened. And I wonder if Anthony, who has had a 16,000 grit Shapton for 2.5 years.
Yeah, so unless you are doing a whole lot of sharpening, you're probably doing more flattening. You think maybe more flattening than is necessary?
Than he needs, yeah. Because also, it's by the time you get to 16,000, you're just kissing
That would be the
edge.
last stone to go,
Yeah.
right? In terms of like flattening and frequency, you're going to burn through your finest last, correct?
I would think so.
Yeah. Eventually, I've had my 16,000 for at least 2 years, and it's probably pretty close to the original thickness as it was when I bought it. So
For a minute, I thought you were going to say it's almost done.
No,
But okay, yeah. Because, I mean, it takes years to wear out stones most of the time.
yeah, and the Norton stones, I literally yesterday just got around to buying a new 1,000 grit and 4,000 grit stone because those are both worn down. They start, 3/4 of an inch? No, maybe inch thick or so.
Yeah.
And they were down to about like a 1/4 inch thick. And I used them, and then I finally said, oh, I could just get new ones. But the 8,000 grit Norton from the same set is plenty of wear left on that. So I don't anticipate ever replacing that probably.
You should send them back to Norton and they glue them together and then sell them as combo stones.
Yeah, I use that, the fishing tackle kit where the stones clamp to the center.
Yeah.
And because of the side clamps, it's like I'm down to the side clamps in terms of flattening. So, and actually my 4,000 grit is my 1,000, 4,000 combo stone from my other set. So, yeah. So that's my smooth move is don't wait so long to buy new stones if you need to. And my smart move of the day is that I actually bought new stones.
All right. Last question that I put in the email and I didn't remember doing it. My wife wants to buy a toy blanket hope chest to store our kids' toys and dress-up clothes in. Both?
Yeah.
Okay. On Facebook Marketplace, she can find one used for less than $100. To build one for myself is about $200, and honestly, 5 to 6 months of labor. When do you build versus buy? It's from Scott.
I say the toy hope chest he builds. 'Cause that's not such a complicated build, depending on the chest that he chooses. Nancy Hiller's chest would be a great one. And without without the carving, you could even do it that way. But also because that's an important piece that's going to stay around for a long time. It's going to go from toys to blankets to whatever. I just think that's like a mainstay kind of piece. That's worth the extra time and the extra money to build. That's my take. Build that. But I don't know. Like it's so dependent on the deal you're getting on Facebook or wherever and what that looks like. But without all the information and having the two things to choose from, I would say build it.
I think if he's asking, he doesn't want to build it, right?
Oh, I think if he's asking, he doesn't want to buy it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I think that says a lot about both of us.
The way he put the 5 or 6, I think you're probably right.
I don't know, because it's like there's some things, no, I'm building that. But if I need something to just function, but a chest is like a lifelong thing. Yeah. Barry?
Both. So okay, it's a crappy answer. If you're buying this chest used, the answer is kind of particular to him. If you're buying the chest used, I'm guessing you can flip it for the same amount.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll be, even if you sell it for 70 or 50, whatever, your kid's got to use it. The hope chest whatever chest that you build is the forever piece though. So now stress is off. You can put your kid's garbage in the thing you got from Facebook Mark, kids' toys and playthings into the chest that you bought. But then you build it with it was more jazz hands, like kind of fancy fingers. And
the parade wave.
With zero stress. So you can design it and build it and do whatever you want, And so when I moved to Connecticut, I didn't have a kitchen table. Like, I'm going to build it. Fast forward like 6-8 months.
No kitchen table.
Right, I'm like, this is nuts, you know? And when I finally got the kitchen table into my kitchen, it was very strange that all of a sudden I had this thing that I was bumping into. Like it took too long. And I could have bought a $40 thing to put my plates on in the interim. And I think, so I have a little chest of drawers now that is hideous, but it holds stuff that I want held. So I've had it. And I know I'm going to replace it, and I'm designing the thing in my head, and I'm taking my time, and I want to make it good. But while I'm doing that, I have this thing that I hate that I know I'm going to replace and is spurring me on and is holding my stuff. So...
And you're not stressing because your stuff is just on the floor.
That I don't know how, maybe he's more cool with it, but I hate that.
Yeah, I think you're onto something here, babe.
Yeah, I do
so
too.
like buy used, like don't, you know, but buy and then flip it and make it. So
Make it and then flip it.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
kids sort of have an expiration date on
That's
them.
another, yeah.
And, you know, this could be the last year that they are really going to play with a toy chest. So, no, so they have something to use. It takes the pressure off you. You can make what you want. You might also decide that a toy chest is not the next thing you want to be making either. So that's fine. I think I love old furniture. So, like, not antiques. How do you do your jazz hands? Thank you. Not antiques in terms of things that are of high value, but just old solid wood furniture, which was built well, and it could be a little bit beat up or clunky, but is still serviceable. I think that's the best value in furniture, period. What I would hate is IKEA is okay. You know, IKEA is super well designed. It's sort of, you know, designed to be used for a certain amount of time, but at least there's some nice industrial design and smart manufacturing going on into that product. What I would supremely hate would be more of a cheap, more contemporary wood piece where the drawers are super clunky and there might be that little nylon little guides on the bottom of the drawer, and the drawer bottom is like 1/8-inch plywood. And, you know, that kills me because that is an affront to my senses. Every time I would use that, I would think about what poor quality. But if it's like an old piece and it had, you know, real dovetail drawers, and again, it can be just a flea market find. I love having that stuff in my house. So I think old is super cool. And to your point, Barry, it's a really good out. And if you buy an old piece of furniture for a certain amount, you're probably going to be able to sell it for that same amount. Yep.
And there's nothing worse than stressing over a build because your partner wants it. Right. You know, it's like if it's going to take you 5 or 6 months and your partner's not, you know, is kind of annoyed at the lack of the thing for that 5 or 6 months. You know, like right now, I'm really should have built the bread box for our kitchen. And it's actually gotten to the point where I'll be in between a project, be like, I just don't know what to build. And
You dare say that out loud.
And or I'm not working on anything, and that bothers me if I'm not building something at a given moment. And Katie will go, well, you could build that bread box. I'll go, no. It's like just the fact that like one day, the design I have in mind is a quick one, and one day I'll hopefully knock it out over a week or so.
Yeah.
But I'm just not ready. And it's a bread box. You know, it's the bread is on the counter, not in a box. But toys are already going to be spread throughout your everywhere. And the stress from that will be compounded by the fact that your partner wants this thing built. So
you're saying go the purchase route to save your marriage, and you're saying get out of your shop, everybody, stop building furniture and go to the flea markets.
No, both.
You did say both?
He started it.
Did you say both too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I was just agreeing with Barry.
He's like, buy something good, not like...
Right.
But,
all right.
But to your point, though, a chest, a hope chest or whatever, blanket chest, that is like a really nice heritage piece that you build and will always be useful and will always
Right.
Grandpappy built that one day, and like that is something that I could see
Yeah.
spending time and care on.
But then everybody hates them. Like, where do you put a freaking blanket chest? It's like, my bedroom isn't big enough, and I bonk my shins on it every time I walk by this thing. And you only use it to like put your socks on. Like, you never look at what's inside of that thing. Like, who puts blankets in a blanket chest? Get another quilt from the blanket chest, please. I don't know. I think it's a useless piece of furniture.
Oh, wow. That escalated.
Right? Quickly.
Wow.
No idea where that came from.
That was unexpected. Oh, shoot.
All right. Does anyone have any random recommendations? My recommend, don't bring in a blanket chest around Mike.
Right?
Chinese Cooking Demystified on YouTube.
Is that the one that you sent me? No, that was a different guy.
Was it to do with it?
Saltbox.
No, that was Jake Kenji Lopez Alt, who's also very good, but very nerdy. Like if you want to get a little bit academic with your cooking, well, actually also Chinese Cooking Demystified. But whereas Lopez Alt is more of like a chemist, Chinese Cooking Demystified gets more historical with things. And a lot of the ingredients that they use are hard to source. So they're both it's a couple. They're both located in China. A lot of the ingredients are hard to source here, and I doubly can't eat it because I have celiac, and a lot of that stuff has wheat or gluten in it. But their presentation's wonderful. The food looks excellent. And if you have, they do give alternatives. Like if you can't find this, try this. Mm-hmm. And everything about their station, what is it called? Channel is mouth-watering. So highly recommended.
I want to recommend the podcast, This Is Love. We've talked about it. I think you've recommended it before, but I was mowing the lawn the other day bawling.
I forgot about
It's allergies.
I was just mowing my yard and crying.
What episode?
My Penny.
Okay.
Oh.
I'll hit on the way home.
And but the Phoebe Judge, the host, just her voice, and they do a different podcast, Criminal, which is all about crimes and everything, and her voice is just mesmerizing, and the way she pronounces things. .com. She's not British, but she kind of is. But yeah, that's mine. This Is Love or Criminal, both phenomenal.
I did the commute for the first time in a long time today, and I was listening to a TED Talk. I just kind of randomly found it when I was searching for something to listen to, and I have a love-hate thing with TED Talks, but it just feeds into the next one on the topic, and it's kind of nice. I like the randomness of that it keeps going, and it hits on the same topic that you started with, but with a twist on it, and I kind of just go through them. I just go to the next one if I don't like what it is, but it's been a while since I listened to some TED Talks, and it was kind of relaxing. And if you get a good speaker, they're really dynamic, and it's really, really good stories.
All right, let's end it with, there's a listener email comment. Mike didn't want to do one.
A double pass?
No, I came back around the first time. I snuck it in there.
You kind of did.
Yeah.
I think he said enough. All right, so we got this email. It was just too adorable. Hi, Ben and crew. My husband is a keen woodworker, and he produces some fabulous pieces of furniture and cabinetry. We listen to your podcast as we travel between Broken Hill and the outback New South Wales to our closest capital city, Adelaide, which is 500 kilometers, which might be a mile and a half. I don't know. The trip usually takes around 6 hours. Maybe they're walking. Driving through the desert only to passing through small towns and occasionally seeing a kangaroo or emu for entertainment. I have grown to love your podcast as much as my husband and find that it passes the long drive time quickly. We usually manage to listen to three or four podcasts per trip. When you have the segment, favorite tool of all time, spelled with a U.
TOUL?
Favorite.
That was good.
Thank you.
That's a towel.
we stop and discuss ours. He talks about a tool or technique discovered recently, and I talk about a tool or technique used whilst quilting. The knowledge I've gained while listening to the podcast allows my husband to discuss any woodworking issues he may encounter, knowing I kind of understand. The humor contained in the podcast is also enjoyed. Keep up the good work and stay safe. Kind regards, Kay. I love Kay.
That was adorable.
That's great.
Very
Yeah.
sweet.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. That was the highlight. Everything else we apologize for. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer on the show, send them into shoptalk@taunton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Nita.
If you love this podcast, you'll love Fine Woodworking Unlimited. Access more than 40 years of articles, how-to videos, and project plans designed to take your craft to the next level. Check it out.
He. That was great. Wow, it's balmy in here.
It is.
I brought a sweater because I thought.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Barry's
he's
loud.
nice.
Fine, I'll tone it down. You.
Talking.
It's all you ever do is talk.